topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hi everyone, it's Arti with Light Up Your Life, and today is Friday, and it's a beautiful day here in Virginia Beach. It's actually close to 70 degrees, so we've had like 3 days this week of 70 degrees or something like that. So it's been a really interesting wave. I think sometimes we don't know what is happening. But again, Mother Nature also, she has a way of reminding us that things go up and down, up and down, up and down. So I hope you all are doing well during this busy time. I think I mentioned last week there is so much busyness that happens, but especially during this time where everybody's closing out and getting ready for the holidays, and also starting to do a reflection and getting ready for the new year. So I hope during this time of rest and reprieve that you all take some time to reflect on your goals and things that you would like for next year, and not to just keep them. So it's good to break them apart, like a physical goal, emotional goal, and a social goal, like all the degrees of wellness. Sometimes we fixate on just one area. And so what can end up happening is we're not looking at some of the others. And then for January, you can start off by thinking of ways to really look at which area you would like to focus on more, which goal you would like to focus on. And for so many, it's usually a attribution to losing weight or, shedding some pounds. So that is often a big one. Just want to remind all of you, instead of succumbing to a fad diet or a program that's short term, for you to start evaluating what a lifestyle change will look like for the long run. I myself can say this to you because I've done so many different diets and programs over the years. I have struggled with my weight since I was a teenager, and so I have tried a lot of different programs, and they work for the interim, but we're looking for the long haul. So I encourage you during this time to think of it. What is it that you would like to incorporate more of? For example, some people have really taken the idea of like meatless Mondays to reduce the amount of animal fat in their diets. Or some people have decided that they will try to keep the goal of eating out like once a week or twice a week. So these are just some strategies that you can start thinking about. What is it that's going to help you to evaluate? Maybe it's having a prep day where you prep a lot of cut your vegetables and get everything ready. And then the constant examination. And then you can also think of things like what beans or legumes are you willing to make in bulk, and then that you can just store in your freezer and pull out when needed. So just constant evaluation, I think, is really important when you are having those down moments and you're starting to think about your year and some of the changes that you want to address in your physical and emotional well-being and social well-being. You can also start thinking about in your social sphere, who is someone you would really like to reach out to and connect or reconnect with. Sometimes, especially during the last 2 years, we've fallen out of touch with some people when we were in a survival mode So who is it that you really would love to make contact with? And that's a great consideration. And then, um, oh, and then also financial, right? The financial wellness piece is really important. How are you going to construct and save money as we are in a very much of an inflation period? And especially looking at the projections for 2022, the rapid rise in the increase of goods and products and services, and just noting how are you going to address that? Where are you going to scale back? How are you going to save while the cost of living is substantially going to increase? So starting to have those types of, and jotting down some notes is really, really helpful to start doing that. And also, when you think of emotional wellness, you think of where is it that maybe you can use a little bit of work, which we all are work in progress. So, is it the fact that you would like to have a little bit more patience? Would you like to take a little bit more time in that regard? Um, so, it's really important to kind of evaluate in that sense, like how is it that you can embrace patience? Or, for example, if it's more about how you really want to work on not losing your temper, it could be addressing and developing some strategies around frustration and anger tolerance. So, just a few examples. And then, with this whole thing, always keeping in mind, what are you going to do for yourself for fun and for self care? Is it that you simply want to start off the week by taking a bath like once a week, or setting reachable? Do you want to, if you're someone who loves to read, do you want to join a book club, or even just find a way to sit by the fireplace and read once a week? So finding that engagement piece for self care is also a critical thing to look at. So to highlight, to summarize, if you can take some time, um, in the next few weeks, while there is a little bit of downtime, to do a lot of reflection, look at all of those levels of care: your financial care, your emotional care, your physical health care, and then just your personal self-care. Like, how do you get to have fun and take care of yourself and repeat that way? So our topic focus this week, what it is still, but was was on cancer with our special guest Ingrid. I don't want to mispronounce her name, but Boque, who actually is was going to be tuning in from Europe, but she actually was not feeling so well, and so we are going to be rescheduling. But I still wanted to continue, because we, of course, are on the Cancer Network, to continue this conversation of cancer. I think it's a really important time to still highlight how we can really take care of our minds, bodies, and spirits, especially with preventative measures in cancer, and also when evaluating treatment options and everything as well. And I know during the last 2 years we've hyper focused a lot on COVID, um, but we have to be reminded there's a lot of chronic illnesses and different factors that we can actually examine and find that we can really start to heal our bodies and heal ourselves. Um, and like I said, Ingrid will join us in the new year sometime. We'll schedule her out, but I just wanted to share the cover of her book. It is called Cancer's Cure Called Nature, and it's called My Self Healing and Transformation. And I have a lot of cancer books myself, after my mom's treatment or during her treatment. And then, of course, just constantly researching currently, um, all the time, because I think the more that we look at natural ways to heal our body, and not calling them alternative, right? Complementary therapies and modalities um, to some of our Western approaches to cancer, then we find this integrative model of health, this integrative, um, functional way of living. And so today we'll be taking a look at some video clips in a few minutes, but just wanted to share a couple of things with you, and then really to highlight that it's really important to look at this in a preventative lens, um, and also to show you how many survivors we have, because they literally changed either their mindset, the way they're eating, like a combination, but definitely a mindset perspective change. They talk a lot about joyful living, living presently, using mindfulness, taking time for themselves, stressing less. So you're going to find these themes that the same themes that arise with cancer are the same themes that are arising with trying to prevent cancer, chronic illness. Anyways, why I love this book is because she basically, in the very beginning, talks for a little bit about her own quick journey, um, and then literally goes into the nutritional modalities, about talking about ways to really heal. And I just love it because like I said, I have a lot of cancer books to read, but this one is really, really written in a simple way. I love the fact that she gives explanations behind even fruits. She talks about how in fruits we're oftentimes, especially now, we're like, oh no, we need to stay away from that. It has sugar. Now, remember, there's a natural sugar and there's an artificial sugar, right? Our body does need that idea of that natural sugar. And the more that we take in things from our earth, right? Our earth. So that would be those vegetables and those fruits. We're literally finding that we can heal our body. Food might be thy medicine. That key ingredient in helping us to really medicinally heal, right? Now, remember, and pharmaceuticals were designed for alleviation of pain and symptom management, but they weren't designed for the long haul. So we kind of lost track of that. And so we really have to look at that examination of all of the modalities, right? And that's the goal of so many people who are in this work, to be able to give an array of um, choices, right? With choices, we become empowered. And so knowledge and advocacy are key, right? Education and advocacy. But for instance, just talking about the fact of like the truthful truth about fruit is one of the subtitles, and just talking about the fact of why fruit is important, and I think we often forget. For a second, I'd forgotten to mention that it is antifungal and antibacterial, really helps to build our immune system, especially that vitamin C we're always craving from artificial sources. We just take in some more lemons, and we really take in that orange or fresh orange juice, or just straight oranges. And again, those of you who know someone that's diabetic or has diabetes, you would just watch your natural sugar intake at the end of the evening, and always have that balance of cutting off meals at a certain time, so that you know where that insulin resistance comes into play, is because we do need some time just to let our body settle and be. So I really want to make it clear about this natural sugar, because one of our video clips is going to talk about sugar in general. And so I just want to be crystal clear on the importance of how fruit, and the absence of fruit in our diets, it truly is not just vegetables, but fruits, is one of the ways we have actually become dehydrated, because we, first of all, don't have enough water intake for many of us. And then from fruits and vegetables, which is an essential source of liquid and that nectar, right? That source is really missing too. And so it all affects our GI system, which then gets backed up. That actually is a interpretation of that second brain, right? That mind, body, gut connection. So it's really important to highlight why fruit and vegetables are so critical and so important. So I also thought it was very interesting the amount of time. There's a whole paragraph on avocados. Remember, there's books about nutrition that, I mean, I have read too, but I love the fact that of highlighting all of these essential treatments that can be looked at, which is really a huge abundant time on just spending on understanding fruits and vegetables and herbs. and nuts and seeds. So avocados, those of you who love guacamole, give yourself some mad credit because avocados are so potent and so strong. They are one of the leading vegetables. And again, in many parts, it's considered a fruit as well. But why I highlight avocados is because they got a bad rep for so long, being considered a bad fat. I mean, an unhealthy bad fat. And we're realizing that those, omegas are so critical. Those fatty acids are so critical. And the fact is, people who eat a good amount of avocados when it comes to weight have actually shown that their weight stays stable, and overall is attributing to their health. Now, if you've realized, I always take a look at menus and restaurants to see what they're doing in the world of plant-based health, whole foods, plant-based health. And I've noticed, right, and breakfast items, most everyone, including Dunkin' Donuts, has a avocado toast. Okay, so there's this realization of this huge power source of avocados. So, especially having an avocado toast, you literally could just smash a little bit of avocado, and you don't have to have it just for breakfast, but a really great. You can put a little bit of sea salt and black pepper if you don't, if you'd like. I always say to try to cut that added salt, but if you really need that taste, put black pepper. Or a plug for Trader Joe's. They have this bagel seasoning, and you could even sprinkle a little bit of that if you check the ingredients. You're not allergic to any of the 5 or 6 different seasonings in there. So what I'm trying to get at is you just find a way to highlight. And juicing is incredibly important, and that's also I'm mentioning this on my own because juicing is really critical on helping to starve those cancer cells, right? They are looking for binding to sugar, and you're going to hear an expert in the field talk about it as well. That they're looking for that to bind to. So how do we starve them? So with no further ado, we'll spend some time just watching some video clips, and then I'll share with you, my analysis of what we viewed, and then I'd like you to take some time. Both clips are from YouTube. You can find them again, and then watch them on your own time. Again, where you can, if you're watching the replay of this, you can go back and revisit. So the first clip, and many of you are probably already familiar with TED Talks. I really love the way that TED Talks have completely shifted the way that we allow for education and advocacy to come through to everyone. It's available. You have really great speakers and really great researchers who come on and share what they're doing, what the literature is showing, what the trend lines are, and making things accessible. And that's critical. So we're going to play the clip, and then we'll have a little talk discussion. Roxy, whenever you're ready to play our first clip.
I love candy. Does anyone else like candy? A lot of you. Well, so do cancer cells. Cancer cells love sugar. As many of you know, cancer remains the second leading cause of death in the United States, which means we still need better therapeutics for our cancer patients. Today, I'd like to tell you about an exciting new approach to cancer therapy based on sugar metabolism. We've actually known for a long time that cancer cells love sugar. Almost 100 years ago, in 1924, a famous German scientist and Nobel laureate named Otto Warburg observed that cancer cells eat a lot more sugar than normal cells. So this observation that cancer cells love sugar is known as the Warburg Effect. And the Warburg Effect tells us that normal cells can stop after just one piece of candy, but cancer cells can't stop eating candy. And we do take advantage of the Warburg effect for diagnosis of cancer through PET imaging. Here's a PET scan of a patient with pancreatic cancer. The patient was given radioactively labeled glucose, which lights up when it concentrates in an organ. The pancreas normally doesn't light up because it normally doesn't like to eat so much sugar. But in this case, the patient has cancer cells in the pancreas. It's eating up all the sugar, concentrating it, and causing it to light up in the PET scan, and we're able to diagnose the patient. So it's good that we're taking advantage of sugar metabolism and the Warburg effect for cancer diagnosis, but I want to take it a step further and use it for therapy. Well, in addition to eating a lot more sugar, cancer cells also metabolize sugar differently. There are two major ways to metabolize sugar. One way is to use oxygen, which we breathe in, and convert it to carbon dioxide, which we breathe out. If we don't have access to enough oxygen, we can also convert sugar to lactate, also known as lactic acid. And we've all experienced this during exercise when we're unable to deliver enough oxygen to our muscles. We run out of breath, and we start getting lactic acid buildup, and we feel that muscle burn. From an energy point of view, it's much better to metabolize sugar using oxygen, because you can generate up to 36 energy molecules called ATPs. If you convert sugar to lactate, you only generate up to 2. Well, normal cells take sugar, use oxygen, and convert sugar to carbon dioxide, generating a lot of energy molecules. But cancer cells eat a lot more sugar, and they convert most of it to lactate, even when they have plenty of oxygen available, and they don't generate much energy. So why would cancer cells use such inefficient metabolism? Well, to answer this question, we have to think about what a cancer cell needs. A cancer cell needs to grow and divide and make more cancer cells. And you can't make more cancer cells simply with energy, just as you can't build a new house simply with electricity. So yes, we can make energy from sugar, but we can make other things like DNA and RNA, which serve as the genetic blueprints for the cell, just as you would need a blueprint to build a house. You can also generate carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, just as you would need building blocks, concrete, insulation, and other items to build a house. And we think that the Warburg effect supports all these biosynthetic pathways that generate cellular building blocks. And if we want to take advantage of the Warburg effect, we have to understand it in more detail. So our favorite form of sugar is called glucose. And glucose is metabolized mainly through a pathway called glycolysis, which has many steps that eventually generates a metabolite called pyruvate. Without oxygen, you can generate lactate from pyruvate. With oxygen, you can generate carbon dioxide. Now, the enzyme that generates pyruvate is called pyruvate kinase, and it's altered in all cancer cells. There are actually two major forms or isoforms of pyruvate kinase, M1 and M2. M1 is found in many normal adult cells, meaning these cells are no longer growing. M2 is found in every cancer cell studied to date. But to make things more complicated, it's also found in some normal growing cells. So what I did in the laboratory was to delete pyruvate kinase M2 from both normal and cancer growing cells and see what would happen. And here's what I found. Normal cells grow well, as you can see in the yellow line, with pyruvate kinase M2. And when I delete it, they completely stop growing, as you can see in the red line. When I do this to cancer cells, they're able to grow with or without M2. So how are they doing this? Is their metabolism changed? Are they rewiring their metabolism? In order to do this, we have to be able to look at their metabolites. And we can't just put them under a microscope and look at metabolites. It's too small. So we need very expensive and sensitive instruments. I've been told that this looks like a Slurpee machine, but this is actually a very expensive instrument called a mass spectrometer. And it can detect thousands of metabolites based on a molecule's mass. These are instruments that Otto Warburg did not have, but we have access to them, and we can study cancer metabolism in great detail. And I want to show you my data using this instrument, but before I do, I don't want you to look at the words. I want you to look at the colors. Is it black, or do you see a lot of colors? If it's black, that means no metabolites are changing. If you see a lot of colors, the metabolites are changing. So let's take a look. As you can see, these cancer cells are completely changing their metabolism. They're increasing their metabolites in yellow and decreasing their metabolites in blue so that they can still grow without M2. So it's like this. If cancer cells are invading this Wharton Center at Michigan State University, and we figure out that they're coming in through Wilson Road, so what do? Well, we block Wilson Road. We delete that road so they can't get in. And what do? They find a new way in. They rewire their route. Even though it has more traffic and it's more indirect, they still find a way in. So without M2, normal cells stop growing, and cancer cells continue to grow by rewiring their metabolism. So what I'm doing now in the laboratory is blocking multiple roads at once, multiple genes, so that cancer cells stop growing while normal cells continue to grow. So we just talked about glycolysis and pyruvate kinase, but metabolism is much more complicated than this. And I want to give you an idea of that. So I'm going to shrink glycolysis and move it to the upper left corner of your screen. And now I'm going to fill in the rest of metabolism. So take a deep breath and let it out. As you can see, metabolism is very complicated, and this is still just a simplified map of metabolism. And remember, normal cells came from cancer cells, so some pathways are shared and some pathways are different, which means we have to understand normal complicated metabolism as well as cancer complicated metabolism. But this is a very exciting avenue for therapy because here are just some of the enzymes that are mutated, deleted, or somehow altered in cancer cells. So these are all potential targets for therapy. So here's our research strategy. First, I want to identify all the key metabolic pathways that help cancer. Then, I want to do deeper mechanistic studies that tell us exactly how each pathway is helping cancer cells. Does it help their survival, their growth, or their invasion, or something else? Then I want to take all of this information and use it to design personalized therapy. Because as you know, all individuals are different with their own genetics, diets, and environments. So we have just begun to understand different metabolism in cancer and taking advantage of it for therapy. There are many different types of cancers with all kinds of mutations, but they all have one thing in common. They all have to eat. Cancer cells have altered sugar metabolism, and I want to starve cancer.
So from that video, I know there was like a lot of scientific jargon and info, like in terms of some of what she was talking about, but at the same time, listening to it and really getting engrossed on what researchers and what the field is doing really helps. And so I don't know if you noticed, but that Warburg effect is really important to highlight because it is the fact, and there has been research that's been conducted for so many years about what's happening with that normal cell and with the cancer cell. And so if you noticed, it is the idea of that attribution of sugar, that white refined sugar, and to bring in some brain stuff, we have that dopamine receptor system in our brain that loves sugar just like it loves all of the addictive behaviors we get into. And again, how we have to learn how to curb it, right? So I love the fact that she says, I'm in it to help starve those cells. And so, one of the critical pieces of looking at the puzzle is, what does our diet look like? What are we taking in? Now, I'm at complete fault right now because I am definitely engaging in some cookie feast right now, but I also do know about moderation in terms of at special times, but then what is a majority of the time that the lifestyle looks like? So those are those key points that we need to really examine. So I do think it's important to understand from that video the highlights of like the glucose and what's happening with us, the lactic acid, and really highlighting how there's a way that you can starve these cells. So our next clip is going to be from Sadhguru, and I think I've talked about Sadhguru briefly in another podcast before, but Sadhguru, which is a speaker of truth, is kind of what his name means. He is originally from South India, and he has started what's called the Isha Foundation, and they do have a center in southern United States, but they do expansive work in terms of education and also raising awareness in general, and then finding a way to highlight what it means to serve. He has a lot of books out, and so one of them recently is Your Destiny to Karma. I think I'm saying that one right. I mean, karma. And so talking about service as the way to deal with things. Now, I highly encourage you to, if you are an active cancer patient, to watch some of his videos, because they really talk about the idea of that positive mindset and what you can do. And he also has suffered from cancer. So I really thought that this video would be powerful because, and I use the word suffer because if Ingrid was on here, or some of our other folks, even my own mother, who said it was a life-altering experience, and even I thought like it was the wake-up call of living a humble life. So, it is what you make of it, right? So people get really afraid. They'll say, oh, I don't want to talk about the big C word, or I don't really want to approach this. But instead of turning it into the enemy or the thing that I'm fighting, how can you work with it? How can you work with it to have lessons and things learned from it? And then seeing that shift that happens, because there has been research when we successfully or unsuccessfully trying to beat the cancer, get rid of the cancer, right? Sometimes it doesn't work unless we have that mind shift of like, what is this here for? What lessons am I going to take away from this? So that's critical. So, okay, we're going to watch this video on Sadhguru and then highlight a few things as well. So Roxy, whenever you're ready for our second clip.
So coming to the doctor's statement, it all depends on how you take it. Yes, it all depends on how you take it. Should I fight it? How can you fight an enemy that you cannot see? And cancer is not somebody, you are the cancer. A part of you has turned against yourself. You can't fight it. So what should I do? It is just that every human being, largely every human being, always in some way is working against himself or herself. If you created a moment of anger, you're working against yourself, isn't it? Today there's medical proof to show you. When you're angry, your whole chemistry is working against yourself. There's substantial medical proof. It doesn't need medical proof, one should know by experience. But if you're so insensitive, today we'll show you blood results. So if you're miserable, you're working against yourself. So in some way, everybody has some kind of cancer. Only when it manifests physiologically, it becomes a medical issue. Till then, it's your problem. Yes? Till then, it's just your problem. When it physiologically manifests, it becomes a medical issue. Now that it's physiologically manifested, for variety of reasons, not for one particular reason, there are variety of reasons. Fighting is not the way. Fighting the cancer, not the way. Fighting for something and fighting against something are two different things, isn't it? And anyway, it's best to take the fight out of it. If you want a plant to grow and blossom into beautiful fragrant flowers, you may think you're fighting the earth and getting flowers out of it. Or you may see it as a great love affair, that your involvement with the earth gives out such beauty and fragrance for you. The second is a more intelligent way of doing it, because your experience of doing it will be pleasant. The result, whatever it comes, will be pleasant. It may flower or the cow may eat it up. You don't know. But whichever way, if your experience of what you're doing is very pleasant, the result will become irrelevant to you. So does it not matter whether I live or die? It matters. That is why you must do it the way it works. If it matters, it's very important that you do it the way it works. Just because you're a brave man, you will fight and you'll die, that's no use. That's of no use to anybody, and that's not of no consequence to your life. You did the right things. Maybe you had it your way, or maybe you did not have it your way, but at least you did the right things. That is most important. So, when death stares at you, it's a greatest possibility. I think already we've handled that, because it's reminding you that you're mortal, which is not a simple thing. Most people have forgotten that they're mortal. They think it only happens to somebody else. Yes or no? Most people think death happens only to somebody else, not to them. No, it's going to happen to you and me. How it happens is different, but it's going to happen to you and me. So about how to deal with the cancer, I don't want to go into that now. If you come, we can help you, but first go through the allopathic treatment. It's the most aggressive and invasive treatment, but it's best to go through that rather than taking chances. But after that has happened, recovering from the treatment is a big challenge. There are many things that can do. In the yogic system, it can be done. For cancer itself, it can be done. But the risk levels are so high and the time allowed is so little, so we wouldn't usually take a chance with that. It's best to go through the treatment and then do other things so that recurrence doesn't happen.
So while I love Sadhguru and while I love that video, I do want to highlight that one of the focuses that I believe in, and again, if Ingrid or someone else who has gone through cancer, such as herself and who now works with empowering clients, would actually have a healthy discussion with Sadhguru and say, well, what happens if I don't actually believe in my allopathic conventional treatment? What happens if I actually want to give something else a chance? So here's the thing. The principle is that it lies within your own faith system, right? Within your own belief system. And so you have to do some digging and investigation. You're literally in those moments of deciding what modality or modalities you're going to do, really have to believe in the plan that you're developing, whatever that be. So I just wanted to, I would love to have a conversation with him on that piece, because he was saying, the risk that we take when we don't do conventional treatment. But I think he has other follow-up videos, so there, where he discusses different approaches. But just the key ingredients for that, if you noticed, were the idea that we get so fixated on fighting, right? Fighting this cancer or fighting and winning. And then we get so engrossed in that we take away the idea of the mindful journey behind it and what is our goal. So the research is showing that walking in mindfulness of seeking gratitude and showing gratitude of what you do have often helps patients and clients going through um, cancer, even in survivorship, when they have taken the lessons they've learned and put it into action. Um, I love when he said that cancer is not the somebody, right? I mean, it becomes, these cells are a part of us, right? At that cellular level, they're a part of us. So, how do we extend and approach things so that they no longer, um, so that we're no longer looking at them as that enemy, right? They're part of us. How do we look to see what we need to either change or tweak or re-examine? I also took a note out of that, that most people forget that they're mortal. So he even brought up death in this very small little topic, right? Because I think the fact is that with this cancer diagnosis, we just instantly go to the mortality conversation. And so in that, it's true. We all think that we do know that we will go someday, but we don't necessarily realize what that means. So for him to bring up mortality and that cancer piece is essential. And I think the more that we evaluate cancer treatment, we do need to really address this social emotional piece to it too, on what turmoil it can cause and how we can approach it and tackle it as well. So again, I think that clip, combination with the clip that we watched before, is the idea of there are some things that we want to take into consideration. One is our mindset, and number two, the approach of what sugar can do to our bodies, and how those cancer cells crave it, and so how we have to reverse how that system works. I also wanted to talk about the idea in Ingrid's book, and when she does come, we'll even highlight even more, is the fact of that she took on this Zen-like. She took on being a Zen, like a Zen person, right? A Zen thinker, a Zen believer. And so what that means is being so in the moment present, being grateful, being filled with, celebrating accomplishments. If something doesn't go right, how to honor and respect that as well. So I think I shared in one of my segments, I recently took on a new role as being a doctoral student. And so the last 5 weeks of our program, we have I've gone and done a big identity shift, and in terms of really evaluating my shortcomings, also my gifts. And one of the things they ask us to do in this beginning class in the program is evaluating ourselves as these doctoral students that are researchers and trying to engage in. And what comes out of it is the mindset piece, like to have the mindfulness, and then also to take constructive criticism from the professors and the teachers and not take it to heart as much as you can, right? To know that that is going to further and better. And same in this cancer modality. Given the diagnosis, what does it mean and what can we highlight for it? What does it mean in our lives? What does it mean in terms of changes? What does it mean on how you're going to live your life? Are you going to really look at the sun? If you notice all of even the big pharma commercials for some of our cancer treatments, and what we see videos of are that cancer patient that is outside soaking in the sun. And it's because they really want to be in nature, they really want to be present, and they really want to be part of that experience. So I know today wasn't with our guests, but I hope you could take away some nuggets, and I just continue to think that cancer has so many gifts of learning that we all need to take on preventative measures. I think it's here to tell us that, and just to remind us that as a second leading cause of death in the United States, that we really need to start focusing on how to go in that preventative model, and how our rates can be reduced in this country, and how we can set some precedents on healing. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Want to just let you know, for the holidays, the team from Talk 4 Media, as well as myself, will be taking some time to rest and reprieve. And so we encourage you all to do the same, and spend some time soaking, just being present, and take a little bit break from the technology. And so we'll be taking a break, and I just wanted to wish you all a happy holidays on behalf of myself and our wonderful team. And thank you for listening and tuning in. And we will see you back for live episodes. There will be some pre-recordings coming over the next couple weeks, but just wanted to highlight that. Thank you as always. Take good care, and continue just to live your best life that you can.